Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 32. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about emotional intelligence and how that can kind of play a part in your life and in your work as well.
Yeah, I think this is a really important topic, especially, as we do talk a little more about entrepreneurship and owning businesses. But really, no matter what stage of your career that you're in, this can really help you. So,
Yeah.
how's the week?
Good. We just had Easter at my family's house, and that was a really fun time. My cousin's kids came, and they're like 9 and 10 years old, and they're just really fun.
Yeah,
And our niece's first
yeah.
Easter, and she's just adorable as always. We played like fun games. We had like an egg contest where you would either won money or candy or had to crack an egg over your head. Um,
Your family's always doing something fun like that. I
yeah,
love it.
they always come up with random games, and then there was like this drawing game, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, that
So
was fun too.
it was cool. I currently have my Yukon shirt on because we are playing in the Final Four this weekend, and hopefully by the next episode, I can say that they are champions again. Um, my family never, watched like professional sports, at least like my parents and my dad. So I watched the NFL and whatnot, and my siblings too. But my dad was always all about UConn basketball, so that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And we're finally starting to get some work done on our basement.
I'm excited.
Me too.
But that means this will be the last.
Second to last
Well, we're gonna
episode.
film two episodes right now,
Yep.
and the second one, which will come out 2 Fridays from, well,
It
something
comes
like
out
that.
on the 12th, April 12th.
Yeah, so that'll be our last episode on this set.
Yeah.
And
I'm
we did
sad.
32, 33 episodes here, and yeah, it'll be exciting to branch out into a different area and also try some different things. I know that we have some ideas for like improving our set and making it a little more aesthetically pleasing. And I think it'll be cool from a camera perspective too, in terms of framing it differently and creating a nicer shot. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to share. I have a new masterclass. This one's actually really a workshop style. So it's free. It's on April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's called the Step Into Your True Self workshop. It's meant to be more of an interactive experience, kind of like a mini coaching session with me.
I love that.
And I'm going to be doing things where I'm walking you through like a grounding practice. I will be teaching and educating about what it means to be living a holistic lifestyle and why that's so important for really feeling like you're in alignment with yourself.
Mm,
We're going to be doing things like journaling and practicing some self-discovery. I'm going to teach you how to set identity-based goals and really actually set like some milestones and some next action steps that you can take on your own.
that's awesome.
And I'll, walk through a meditation as well. So, yeah, I highly recommend coming live if you can. But there will be a replay available, except it's going to just be like limited time available after. So sign up if you can't make it and are interested. But again, it's free. You can go to newmoonholisticlife.com/true self to sign up.
I love it. So it's going to be more of so your last one was the breath work and self talk. That was a little more like I think you said like focusing on one modality.
Right.
So this is more like a true coaching session where you're encompassing all those elements of holistic living.
Yeah, it's really like bigger picture.
That's awesome.
And I'm kind of giving a taste of what it would look like to work with me
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to do it in a way that is free and gives you, things that you can take away, actual action steps that you can start to take. It's investing some time in yourself and really putting thought into like what you want out of life and discovering yourself again. So
That's amazing. When
yeah,
is that again?
April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Great. We'll see you guys there.
I can't wait. Any other things for you to share?
Figuring out a larger plan with music. I had a song I was gonna put out, and I think I got like right to the point of putting vocals on it, and I was like, I don't love this song.
So are you going to put it out or no?
I don't know. I might later, decide that it's just missing something that pulls it all together. I have an idea for like one more song that I've been holding on to that I think I want to, finish. And then after that, I kind of want to make like more simpler, more modern music. A lot of what I have now is like heavily layered. There's a lot of like instruments and things like that. So playing with it, figuring out some things. And then I'm taking courses. I'm doing courses on day trading right now, which is fun. I found somebody who's teaching a strategy that has a high win rate. So, I'm learning more about that and I'm practicing and doing simulated trading and I'm excited. It's something I've always been really fascinated by. So it's cool to like be there and actually, practicing it.
Yeah.
So explain emotional intelligence.
So the actual definition of it is the ability to manage both your own emotions and understand the emotions of people around you. And this is important because it's just needed in so many ways as far as taking care of yourself and interacting with others,
Yeah.
having understanding of other people's emotions and how you need to change the way you're reacting or responding. Having emotional intelligence helps with, your ability to relieve stress, both for yourself and for like assisting with other people's stress.
Mm,
It helps you know how to communicate more effectively. And it's really about being able to empathize with others, and having emotional intelligence helps with overcoming challenges and diffusing conflicts. It's really about being able to have, good communication.
yeah. I was gonna say, it really empathy is absolutely a component of this. And even when I think about in terms of like leadership, especially in business, like a good, strong leader has solid emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And emotional intelligence, like having good emotional intelligence, helps you really connect with your own feelings, understand what you're feeling, and how you then turn that into actions and making decisions about things that matter most to you. So,
Yeah, I think that kind of gets into awareness, right,
mhm.
of yourself. So why don't you like break down the components?
Yeah, so self awareness is really the first one.
Yeah.
And we talk about awareness all the time. We have a whole episode on awareness, but in terms of just emotional intelligence and your emotions and your feelings and the actions that you take, like your own self awareness is being in tune with yourself, what you're feeling, being able to identify that and know where that's coming from, and knowing like when something is triggering to you. It's
Yeah.
it's creating you to want to be more reactionary.
Right.
So being able to recognize that and see that so that you can change it and respond better.
Yeah.
Self regulation, which again goes back to like if you are triggered or you are in a state of anger or sadness or fear, being able to again respond versus react, and being able to self regulate, calming yourself back down, calming your nervous system down, which is something we've talked about so many times.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that first step is cultivating the awareness
Hmm.
of, who you are, how you're feeling. And then the second step is that actual regulation.
Right.
Um, and I think really what ends up happening is a lot of people aren't at these first two steps. They're actually more so commonly people pleasing and
Hmm.
thinking more about other people.
Yep.
So, do you want to explain that?
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that I continue to work on myself, because the first piece is about you. But the next pieces are kind of about like the external piece, the other people. And so social awareness, that is being aware of other people's emotions. So if you are someone who might people please, that might be something that you do a lot.
Yeah.
That is something I do a lot. I'm very empathetic. I know I'm like very in tune with how other people are feeling around me. And so there have been many times where, I'll try to take actions to make them feel better, like to try to navigate the situation.
Yeah.
But social awareness, again, it's being aware of other people's emotions, being able to read the room and having that empathy and understanding how someone else is feeling.
Right. And it's like anything, you've really got to find that balance of like, okay, I'm aware of how other people are feeling, but you also need to integrate that self-awareness piece of how am I feeling and how can I maybe help the situation without compromising, something for myself.
Yeah. And then just like the, self component is like self regulation, there's that, like, that's kind of more of like the action.
Yep.
With others, it's like more like relationship management. That is when you have the ability to have constructive and productive communication. That's when you're able to problem solve versus like just focusing on the issue. You're actually focusing on solutions.
Yeah.
It's not pointing fingers,
Mm,
and it's working again towards resolution together with another person, more than one person. So that's like being able to manage the relationship with people when there is conflict, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be conflict, but
yeah.
just like when something needs to be worked out and communicated, you're doing it in a way that everyone is just on the same page and working towards it together.
Yeah. So to kind of summarize, you have the self component, right? Which is awareness of yourself. And then that enables you or empowers you to be able to self regulate and understand what steps you need to take from there. As it pertains to other people in group settings or teams, you have the social awareness of being able to read the room. And then you have the actual actions of managing those relationships and the conflict or whatever the situation might be.
Yeah.
So, what are some examples of what this might look like in real life?
Yeah, so we each have an example to share. So I was going to share an example when we were running our marketing consulting, and our client was having personal situations going on with her family. And so it was causing a lot of things in our job with them and our work with them to be delayed, or we weren't getting, great feedback. We weren't getting responses and deliverables that were needed to move the project forward. And then it was kind of like other people started getting involved and, wondering why things weren't moving forward, weren't progressing.
Yeah.
So that was the situation. Now, for ourselves, we had to, number one, have like that self awareness of, okay, how do we feel about this situation? How are we going to handle this situation professionally? But also then the, component of relating to her, having empathy and understanding like she's going through some stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to affect the relationship. It's going to affect how we're working with them. It's going to affect the project.
Yeah.
So we had to self regulate. Like there were times, of course, where we were
Oh, yeah.
frustrated
Yeah.
and we were annoyed, especially when we didn't know like what was going on yet. And it was
Yeah.
just like, it felt like we were being disrespected, like our time was being disrespected, and
Hmm.
like we were getting painted in a bad light because projects weren't moving forward.
Yeah. And it was, but I will say too, I think in terms of the way we managed those relationships, we did a good job where we were able to speak to other people in the organization and make sure it was understood, not pointing fingers, but making sure it was understood like our part is done,
Yeah,
and
we've done
we've
all we
we've
could.
done what we've promised and we're waiting now at this point. And I think, that's something you've got to kind of finesse, especially in business. Like you want to be respectful of people. You don't want to burn bridges or point fingers, but it really gave us the opportunity to kind of practice that and really manage the relationship. And the people that we spoke to understood the situation, the higher ups, and we got in contact with leadership, and it worked out for us. But yeah, I think it's really you're always going to have to kind of consider other people's feelings, because we could have gone in there and said, well, it's so and so's fault,
Right,
we're not getting what we need.
right.
So
So we had, the self awareness of how we were feeling about the situation. We had to self regulate to keep it professional, stay calm, even when we were getting frustrated. We had to have the social awareness where we, started to understand what was going on and have empathy. And then relationship management, where we had to make changes, we had to pivot, we had to have some discussions where, again, like you said, we weren't pointing fingers, but we had to explain our part
Yeah.
in as professional as we could and say, we've done what we can. So
Yeah. And it,
help us move from here.
right. And in that situation, it meant kind of figuring out a way to move those projects forward without as much involvement from that person. Um, and, we worked toward a resolution and we got through it.
Yeah. So that's kind of a business like setting example, there's definitely conflicts and
Yeah.
things that have to be worked out in your job, in your career, in your business, whatever it may be, but were you going to share a more personal example?
Yeah. So, I think on a personal level, I had a friend from high school that, um, we had met for like walks and stuff through the years. We went for hikes and we kind of kept in touch. And I had kind of, I'm a pretty blunt guy and said like, look, I don't want an acquaintance. Like I'm trying to build my circle. And, we kept in touch. And then at one point, I just wasn't getting responses from this friend. And about 6 months went by. In that time, we had everything with my lung and a lot of stuff happened with our businesses and a lot of life happened. And I kind of, reiterated because we had had this conversation two or three times at this point of like, that's not really friendship to me if I hear from you twice a year.
Right, you set those expectations and
Right.
had the conversation
Yeah.
and it was agreed upon.
It was agreed multiple times, like I understand.
Right.
So at this point, I wasn't upset. I just said, look, like I'm investing my time in this and I don't feel like my time is being reciprocated or respected. Um, so I said, I wish you the best. I just don't think that I can continue to invest my time here. And the person got very upset, very defensive. And the response was a lot about not being there when my lung collapsed. Um, and it wasn't that I was trying to make them feel bad. I just kind of explained, like, medically, there's been some things that have been going on with me. And I just, I didn't really feel like it would have been an option to communicate those things and reach out for support at that time.
Right.
Um, so, long story short, I ended up saying, this just isn't somewhere I can continue to invest my time. And the response was kind of like I was calling them a bad person or a bad friend. And so I think something I want to communicate, especially in the topic of emotional intelligence, is something my dad always taught me, right? He, growing up, he was always firing people, always had to fire people for his job. And he always said to me, you leave people with their dignity. And I have not always been good at that. And so that's something I've really tried to be better about. And so I, responded to this person and I said, look, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I know you're a good person. Um, and a lot of the things that they said, a lot of insecurities came out, and I communicated that those were separate discussions. A lot of those were hypotheticals that they had created, because all I can offer is what my experience has been with that person.
Right.
So, very politely, as kind as I could, um, said, like those things aren't the case, but I'm speaking my truth, and as calmly and politely as I could, I spoke my piece and left it at that. And I was proud in that moment that though it was a difficult situation, I didn't attack the person. I didn't put the person down. There was nothing I did that was mean or harmful. It was just kind of like I need to respect my time and invest it where it's being reciprocated and respected.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
All right. So let's talk about some tips, techniques, things that you can continue to do to start to develop these different components of your own emotional intelligence.
yeah, I think this is really important because we've talked a lot about awareness. But and I know we're kind of like beating it into the ground, but that's the starting point of everything.
Yeah, you cannot make change without awareness.
Right. You have to understand who you are and where you are.
Who you are, where your thoughts are coming from,
Yep.
why you might think a certain way. I mean, we've said it before, but like two people can have the same experience and have very different perspectives on that experience.
Yeah.
So that is again also part of your own self-awareness, like understanding where your perspective on that situation is coming from.
Yeah. So on a personal level, what are some things that people can do to cultivate that self-awareness?
Yeah, it's really about taking time to be present with yourself. It's, doing things like self-reflecting through journaling,
Mm,
meditating, stream of conscious writing and journaling where you're just sitting down with a piece of paper and like, especially if you are maybe frustrated about a situation,
mm,
just get it all down.
yeah.
Like kind of word vomit onto paper. Um,
I wanna kind of speak to that too, because I think the thing that people don't realize is up until maybe like the 50s, like when we started getting TVs into homes,
mhm,
it was very common to spend time thinking.
right.
And we don't do that as much. And like, this from, personally being with me. Like, I'm much better off when I get that time to literally just stare off into space and make sense of some things.
Mhm.
And I would encourage people, if you feel like you're maybe not as connected to yourself as you'd like to be, truly try unplugging from everything and sitting alone in a room with your thoughts. And maybe that's scary. And, that's something you'll have to work through. But everything we're going through, like these are things that can help you for sure. You can start meditating and connect with yourself in many ways. But at its core, it's about you and your self talk. And so if you kind of zoom everything out, spend time alone just thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I've been journaling every day since January 1st, and it's so nice to just have that time to like take a minute and be like, okay, wow, that was a day.
Yeah.
Or that's been a week. That's
Mm,
been a month. Like, and actually just thinking about it and processing through some of that on your own.
yeah. I mean, when I don't thoroughly process things, I end up with my head racing at night. I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Um, Dates and hobbies with yourself are a really good one. Especially, from some of the creative books I've read, there's a lot of discussion of like really encouraging you to spend time with that creative side of you, or even spend time exploring something that you like. So if there's a hobby that you want to get into, you can do it. But I think the distinction there is like truly doing something alone. Like the second you involve other people, it's not that it's bad, but it's not the same thing.
No, it's a social activity versus like an inner
Right.
getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
Then self regulation. We have many episodes on stress management for yourself, about the nervous system, many episodes about that. So, highly encourage to listen to those because we go in depth on this topic.
Yeah.
But there's so many techniques, resources, tools that you can use to start to regulate yourself, such as deep breathing and doing a breathwork practice. Again, meditating,
Yeah.
having a consistent exercising practice and getting your movement in because again these are things your body needs to stay regulated.
Yeah. And so with self regulation, I mean, that's a lot of trial and error. I think that's kind of the big distinction is, whatever route you take, if you do go the conventional medicine route and take pharmaceuticals, there's 15 different pharmaceuticals that do the same thing in theory. But if you look at, someone's unique experience, it might not be the same. Like someone might love meditation, whereas someone else maybe just wants to focus on breath work and not turn it into a spiritual practice.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of figuring out what works for you. Nobody has that answer. It's really just, we always say this, but you got to try things.
Yeah, I think an important thing too with self-regulation is it's about like bigger picture, on keeping yourself in a more regulated state versus being in chronic stress,
Yeah.
as well as like being able to self-regulate during a time where you are triggered.
Mm.
So they're two
Yeah.
pieces to
There's
that.
there's definitely different components to that, and I think you're absolutely going to have to practice compassion, because when you're triggered, you're not, and we've said this before, growth isn't linear. You don't hit some magical threshold to where you suddenly don't react at all, So you got to kind of create the circumstances to keep yourself regulated, but also understand that if something does happen where you don't feel regulated, you kind of have to give yourself that ability to remain human and work through it as it comes.
Yeah, like feel the feelings. Absolutely. I'm not saying like don't get angry, don't get
Right.
upset and sad. Go through those emotions and feelings and then allow yourself to get on the other side of that.
Hmm. So in social settings, right? So that's kind of your self awareness and how you take action to regulate. What does this look like as far as social awareness and managing relationships?
Yeah, so practicing active listening.
Mm,
A lot of times people are only listening to respond
yeah.
and just waiting for their chance to get their word in versus like actively listening to what this person is saying, how, what kind of feeling they have behind it, what emotions are present. And it's important to like be fully there and then take a second. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to immediately respond.
You know what? You had someone you worked with who was a spiritual person, and I loved that when you spoke to her, she would take a pause. She would take a long pause after you finished speaking, and she would really and truly think about how to respond to what you were saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, let me just answer this person, because I have done that often, and I've had situations where I said yes when I meant no and said no when I meant yes, because I wasn't truly listening to the person.
Yeah.
And she really just, was very calm and patient in conversation, which I think patience is absolutely a part of that when you're actively listening.
Yeah. As well as learning how to be empathetic and building that empathy and taking perspectives. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you really do have to put yourself in that other person's shoes and be able to see it from their side and your side and kind of find again like a middle ground.
Yeah. And, like in the case of my example, from a personal level, that person had just gotten a house, and I had told them, like, I'm happy for you. I think that's amazing. I totally understand where you're coming from.
That he's
However,
like busy from that.
right,
Yeah.
you're busy, and I get that, and I understand you're trying to work on the house and make it a home, and I've been through that, and I totally understand. But my side was, we had the conversation many times, and then it got worse than it ever had.
Right.
So I think, you've got to practice empathy. And I think a big part of that is like at a personal level, right? Our relationship is taking time to understand the things that we've each been through, and where you come from, where I come from,
Hmm.
how you might react to a situation, how I might react, and being able to hold that perspective as we navigate the relationship together.
Right. And then that really gets into the last piece, which is relationship management. And that is working on conflict resolution. That is having effective communication and even like doing trust and team building activities if it is, if it's like a group you're working with or a partnership or your job or something.
Mm,
If you are going to be creating like a long-term relationship with someone, you have to like navigate that and know how you guys are going to work together.
yeah.
But what you were just saying too is like about with your friend is meeting people where they are. I think that's such an important piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to have again that awareness of this person is here in
Yeah.
their level of understanding or their level of being able to have empathy or that awareness. And sometimes if you can notice that someone else is reacting a certain way and
Mm,
you can see like I can see that that's coming from their insecurities. I can see
Right.
that they're kind of projecting themselves. Sometimes you have to like be the bigger person and handle it in a way that's going to, be the best way you can.
Yeah, and with this person in particular, I think me kind of not, cutting them off, but walking away from the situation was really that over the past few years, they had asked me a lot of things about holistic living and about even career help, and in that time, they didn't really take any action on any of that stuff. Meanwhile, I was, developing my businesses, developing my career, and studying further until we eventually got to the podcast. But my point is, we reached a point where we were in very different places. And the direction I was heading was not the same direction that they were heading. And I didn't really feel like it was still in alignment.
Yeah.
Their curiosity did not end up translating to action, and it resulted in us in very different places.
Yeah. Anything else on emotional intelligence?
No, that episode felt great.
Awesome.
Friendly reminder, this podcast is sponsored by New Moon Apparel. That is our Zen, motivation, and moon themed clothing line. You can shop designs at newmoonapparel.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.